Teamwork!
Hey everyone, Adam White with Running Central, ShaZam Racing, and Kirk Wessler with the Journal-Star. Talking track and field, promoting the honor roll meet, and you can't talk track and field in Peoria, Illinois, Greater Peoria, without Russell Field being down here at Manual High School.
Manual High School, powerhouse in track, and for the longest time, decades and decades, and especially in the sprints and the jumps. Just a tremendous, tremendous program. And we are here, like you said, at Russell Field, and this is not the same as Russell Field was back in my day.
Mine as well, from that standpoint.
I mean, I might have run at one of the last dual meets they ever had here back in the early 70s, because this was not a good facility. It was cinder, which most tracks were back then, but there were spots, I mean, there was grass growing in the middle of the track.
Lots.
And it was not well kept, and they didn't have the resources, and they could not get the district to invest the resources in this facility down here at that time and going forward. And Dennis Winkler took over as the head track coach down here, and finally got fed up with begging for naught and getting nothing.
Right.
And he had all these tremendously talented athletes, and he said, I'm not gonna have them trying to work out on this crap. And so,
he had his own solution to accomplish greatness, and greatness they accomplished indeed.
This is where Manual's great track teams and all those superb sprinters worked out, in the hallways.
Where there's a will, there's a way, and yes, no joke. So times of relay teams of 42 and change.
On the 4x100, 42 and change.
4x200,
126.6.
Training here in the hallways of Manual High School.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And the Macklins, Jared and Eddie Macklin, brothers, a couple of years apart, they still share the Greater Peoria area record in the high hurdles, 13.7 seconds. Okay. Practicing here in the hallways, running hurdles here in the hallways of Manual High School. The team would run laps when they did lap work. Basically, Dennis Winkler, the coach, said, yeah, they figured this corridor that goes in a big rectangle around the gymnasium where the basketball team won all those titles. They worked out running around this, and he says it's about 400 meters. You know, I think he might have been off by 20 or 30, but it's not far off, and it's close enough to get the work done, right?
Right.
So they came in here and they sprinted, and they ran hurdles. And they worked on approaches. They even went so far on sometimes as far as working on landings for the jumps, the sand jumps, the long jump and triple jump, practice those landings down the hall and out through the door in the swimming pool.
Yep.
Because they didn't have a decent sand pit to jump into. And yet, here they were, one of the spectacular teams in the state. In 1998, they got third in the AA state. And by this time, you gotta understand too, Manual was a school of roughly 800 students competing against schools with 2,000, 3,000, and nothing. You know, they were as good as anybody.
Chicago Public Leagues, the Chicago Suburb Schools, East St. Louis Lincoln schools, with that kind of student body, the volume, the depth that they would have to be able to assemble relay teams together. And here you got Manual right in the heart of Peoria, Illinois, training in a hallway and going toe-to-toe with teams of that size and stature.
Just amazing, just amazing. And you'd think, well, gee whiz, I mean, they're running on tile, okay? And that's gotta be hard on your legs. Dennis told me, he said, hey, he says, I worried about that, so I went and talked to a doctor, trainer, whatever it was. We're talking back in the early 70s here when he looked at this. And he said, you know, what to do? And he said, well, just don't have them run in the same direction too much and you take the stress off. So they would have a counterclockwise week, and then they'd have a clockwise week. So you'd run, you know, practice one week going one way, and the next week you'd practice going the other direction, and it works out. Because where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's all about what's in here and up here, correct?
Mm-hmm. You couldn't be more accurate, and Coach Winkler was a master at being able to tap into that mind, heart, and soul of the athlete here inside of Manual High School and do it again and again and again, season after season after season. It never stopped for him. You talk about a legacy program that he helped build here inside of this school.
Yeah.
I mean,
at one time, it got to where he would have more than 100 kids coming out for the track team. And there were not enough uniforms for everybody, so you had to make cuts. I mean, imagine cuts in high school track. But, I mean, you'd go with what the resources are that you've got. But, I mean, imagine this, too, then in a school of 800 or so kids, that 100 of the boys want to run track and do field. Just phenomenal.
Unbelievable. I mean, so I graduated in '94, and I have some of the coolest memories that I have of track and field as a spectator was watching in awe Manual, Central, Richwood sometimes got in that mix, the 4x4 100-meter relay, capping it off. Peoria Stadium would be filled with spectators to watch a track and field meet and to watch these young men square off against each other. I mean, it put chills down my spine watching what they would produce at the end of a track meet. Exactly,
and again, it's all about what's in your heart and what's in your head and how much you're willing to put into it. Coach Winkler told me, he said, we wore this as a badge of honor. He says, our kids, it was almost a motto. He says, we don't need a track to be good.
And they did not, and part of that history was brought to life with the honor roll meet. Boys and girls, coaches, parents, you gotta be watching the honor roll meet, making sure that your kids have an opportunity to be part of this history, because the history of what they're being a part of today links back to the history that we're standing in right now and a part of it. It links us all together as athletes in Greater Peoria. Honor roll meet, gotta follow it.
Yep, and just remember, coaches, get your times and distances in, submit them every week. Parents, you know, keep on your kids, keep on your coaches, get those times reported so you're on that list. That we track every week. Every Sunday it's in the Peoria Journal-Star newspaper, and every Saturday it gets posted on honorrollmeet.com, which is part of the Journal-Star website. Keep track of those week-to-week updates, and the last one comes out right before the honor roll meet. That's the official entry list.
We want to see you in May. We'll see you out there.